Hello, and welcome to the Heathen's Journey podcast. I'm your host, Siri Vincent Clough, and I'm so glad you're here. This is the show where I explore heathenry through a queer lens. We will be talking about traditional witchcraft, runes, folklore, and so much more. Join us, won't you, as we journey to the ends of the 9 realms and back. Hello, and welcome back to the Heathen's Journey podcast. I want to take a quick moment at the top of the podcast to remind you that I actually have another podcast, Chaos and Cunning, with my best witch, Cassandra Snow. So, if you're all caught up and want more from me, definitely go back and listen to Season 1 of Chaos and Cunning, available wherever you get your podcasts. Before I jump into this week's interview, I wanted to check in with you all about what's going on in my world. This summer has been a really creative one. I've been working hard writing fiction, and I'm really reaching my stride right now. I'm trying to finish the first, very rough draft of this book by September 30th. So I'm putting aside much more time for writing than I have in a while, and it's really paying off. The thing with the first draft is that it's usually bad. This is where you're getting all your ideas out of your head and into a shape. I believe it was Terry Pratchett who once said that the first draft is you telling yourself the story. The second draft is where you begin to tell other people the story. So I'm in a race to finish telling myself the story so that I can begin to refine it. Here's another thing. I know that I do better when I have accountability, hence the deadline. But sometimes I need a little outside pressure beyond my own internal goals. Having a trusted community of creatives holding me accountable to actually getting the work done is critical. That's why I've decided that instead of doing only one creative co-working session for my Patreon next month, I'm going to do weekly creative co-working sessions until I've finished writing this novel. If you would also like 2 months of weekly creative co-working sessions, I invite you to become a member of my Patreon at the $10 or $15 per month level. We'll be meeting every Monday evening at 7 p.m. CST from Monday, August 3rd, all the way up to Monday, September 28th. The first session, which, if you're listening to this the day it comes out, is a little less than a week away, will set some intentions for the next 2 months. From there on out, it will follow the usual creative co-working format. I will pull an oracle card for contemplation and creative prompts, we'll set intentions for the evening, and then we'll run creative sprints where we set a timer and work quietly. In between work sessions, we take a break and talk about how it's going. This is a good chance to brainstorm if you're running into an issue or just to talk to fellow creatives. Again, if you want to participate in the next 2 months' creative co-working sessions, head on over to my Patreon and sign up there. And now I get to introduce today's guest. Donyelle Headington is the founder and lead practitioner of Folkway LLC, a living sanctuary where ancestral traditions, community care, and healing justice converge. Donyelle was raised within African American and Northern/Eastern European families and co-raised by a Colombian family. That mix taught her that food, story, and ceremony bring us back to ourselves. Her practice blends sacred listening, Curanderismo, spiritual herbalism, African Diasporic wisdom, Afrocentric Kemetic studies, and Norse Germanic wise woman ways, via Völva Stav. She also works across traditions as an invited guest in a Mesoamerican Indigenous tradition. Donyelle is a practicing healer and folk magician based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm so happy to have her on, and I hope you enjoy this interview. Hello, Donyelle. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and welcome to the Heathen's Journey.
Thank you, Siri. I'm really excited to be here. I know we had talked about it a really long time ago, and I'm glad that life has finally caught up to our dreams and hopes.
Yeah. I've been wanting to have you on for quite some time. We're in local community together here in Minneapolis, and I just love your work so much. And I feel like I know like the tiniest bit about it. But, learning more all the time. For our listeners,
would you mind introducing your spiritual path and community practice?
Oh, well, my spiritual path and my community practice are pretty much the same thing. Um, I call myself a folkways practitioner, and which means to me that I do the ways of my folk, the people that I belong to, the people that I come from, and that those lineages and cultures and communities really inform and inspire my magical practice, my spiritual practice, my how I function in community, my healing work that I do, and my art because I'm also an artist, and so and even with my art, it has spiritual and community impact. So I just do what my ancestors do.
Yes. Yeah. So your art is fantastic, actually. And I'm kind of kicking myself for not including a question specifically about your doll work. But if you would like to talk about the dolls a little bit, I would love to hear.
Well, my mother decided that I was going to be a doll collector as a child, and I was just terrified of them. My whole life,
Oh,
I've been
wow.
scared of dolls. Yeah, yeah, they really scared me. And and it was, I'm kind of a sensitive, do a little mediumship, a little. So of course, dolls as a child are going to scare the shit out of me. Excuse me, can I cuss?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, awesome. So dolls scared the shit out of me, and so when I was pretty young, I decided that I was going to start making my own dolls, spirit dolls, because I really felt like dolls had spirits, and I wanted to have a little bit more control over what spirits were in my dolls. And so I just started doll making pretty young. I had a friend who was like a little genius, and she was like, "We're going to learn how to make kachina dolls and yarn dolls, and all of these different cultural dolls that obviously we shouldn't have been messing with, but we were kids. What do we know?" And so that's how I became a doll maker, because I was terrified of
That's actually a really kind of fascinating way into working with dolls, I think. I think that it kind of exhibits the power that dolls have. Um, and they are such this potent, like magical force, such potent potential vessels for spirits. Um, and also, of course, the creativity and everything that goes into doll making is absolutely incredible. Like your work is so detailed and beautiful.
them. Thank you. In my mid 30s, I think, maybe early 30s, late 20s, something like that. One of those decades. Um, One of my elders said that it was time for me to start making dolls of um, and celebrating the image of our people. And so back then, there has been like a tradition of African American doll making, and um, but I hadn't had the experience of having like good, beautiful quality, like soft baby dolls, and um, things made out of wool and natural materials, and so and herbs and things like that. So I decided that I was going to create images of um, the Black community, my community, in these ways that I hadn't experienced them. And so that's really where my attention to detail came in, because I wanted to make sure that the dolls were beautiful and they captured these images that we don't really get to see in our community, or didn't at the time. I mean, things have changed so much just over the past 10, 15 years. So, Yeah, and so that my doll work is also part of my magical practice and my spiritual work, and I teach that throughout the community and all the communities that I get to be that will have me.
Yes, absolutely. So I know that you have so many different communities that you're a part of here. You have training in a multitude of different folk practices. And something that I know that a lot of my um, students or listeners are interested in, potentially struggle with, is finding a balance with all of your different folk practices. How do you find that balance?
That is a hard one. You know, and I have teachers and elders in all of the practices who boss me around, and sometimes their um, their lessons are and their rules are they bump up against each other, and that is really hard. And I think at the end of the day, and this is why I consider myself a folkways practitioner instead of, I work with the Orisha, but I am not initiated into Lukumi or any of the ATRs. I I practice the Bulward Way, but I don't ever claim heathenry. I kind of stay on the outskirts of thing, which is the Bulba Way, right? Um, because the first people that I serve are my ancestors. The second people that I serve is my community. And because I belong to such a diverse community, or diverse communities, it's important that no one set of rules um, limit me from serving the people that come to me with need. I'm really I have one elder who is he's a Wiccan, and he's my mentor, and he is Cuban and very kind of touches a lot of different communities and a lot of practices. And he says, I can't devote myself to one practice because I serve such a large community and I have to make sure that my practice has space for everyone. And I really resonated with that, right? Um, so I suppose you have to be willing to be a rule breaker, um, but you also have to be willing to be a rule follower because you can't disrespect the lineages that you're keeping. It can be really limiting, man. It can be really limiting. It is a hard path to walk. And, for me, so much of this is cultural, right? I came into this vulva space or this vulva role or this job. It feels like a job. Um, as a cultural thing, like I literally was like, how do I dig underneath the white supremacy and racism within my own family and my own community? How can I connect to my ancestors in a clean way, right? And I wasn't like, I think Vikings are cool and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna, what do they call it? Reenactment. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think it's super cool that people do that and important. Um, but that's not how I came to this. So really at the end of the day, I hope I'm answering this. I wind around when I speak, so please be patient with me.
That's
Um,
okay. I wander around a lot too.
okay, excellent. Us neural spicy babies. Um, it really is about my people. It's my family. It's my culture. And that's how I balance it. I balance it as what would my grandma do? What my dad do? He's in the next world now. So would he would he say you need to carry fire in this moment? So even though your one teacher says you can't carry fire, your other teacher's like, grab that tobacco and get to work. It's like what would so and so do? So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that does answer the question, and it kind of just really highlights how this is so personal and unique to every single person. And so I also want to say that even though this is the Heathen's Journey podcast, I have struggled so much with the label of heathen for my own work in a lot of ways too. And the reason I'm kind of like, heathen makes sense. It is one of the things that um, it's one of the primary like ways that I work with things spiritually, but I also am very interested in other forms of magic. I'm very interested in chaos magic, for example. I'm very interested in crafting my own magic. I've been exploring more of my Polish roots lately, more of my German roots lately, my French roots, and so it doesn't feel as though I'm trying in my practice to stick to this like rigid definition of what a heathen is. And I kind of like just saying heathen because it feels very broad. Like, if you just think about it as a word, heathen is basically pagan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how I'm coming into it. And that's actually a huge part of why I took such a long break between seasons, because I was like, I need to explore this, and I don't know if I want to only be focusing on heathenry as people might expect from the title of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it really is like finding ways that we balance these complex intercommunity relationships are so personal to each practitioner. Um, and like you said, it's also your teachers, right? Like, how do your teachers advise? And sometimes there is conflict, or different practices have different uh, emphases at different points too. So
Oh, yes.
like all of that stuff, it really just, I don't know. When I think about you, I think about trust, actually. Um, and
Sucker. Just kidding.
I think about you just, trusting your path and the direction that your ancestors and spirits are taking you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if it weren't for this work, I don't know if I would be here. I mean, there's been so many times in my life where I just I've I think of it as like clinging to the robe of my ancestors. Like I just don't know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to make it. And I just keep one foot in front, putting one foot in front of the other and looking to community for confirmation, right? It was many, many years ago, I was at a festival, many years ago, I was at a festival and it was late and we were like in the corner of a barn and just kind of talking. And somebody was like, wow, you're like, you're like my vulva. And I was like, you're what? They were like, you
Yes.
don't know what that is? And I said, no, I don't know what that is. And I think it was just after that I met Kari Tari. Kari, you're one of your mentors as well, right? Um, and then I was like, here's that word. Well, what is this about? But it was that the community is the community brought that up for me, right? They were like, hey, you fit in this role to me. This feels right to me. And I don't want to say that it wasn't an initiation, right? I mean, that's a whole other thing, but it was for me, community acts as it's like as an entity that leads me and guides me to what the next step is, what community needs is, and what that need is expressed to me is usually where my path leads me, right? So I think that I trust Oh, but that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Trusting community. Oh, Lord, that's getting your heart broke every other day.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Ugh.
I think that that is, community is such an interesting thing. I think, especially for many pagans, for a lot of people that I talk to, or, listeners who maybe email me, or people who are patrons of mine on Patreon or whatever, a lot of people will ask, well, I live in rural X state, I live in rural Wyoming, or I live in rural, North Carolina or something. I don't have a pagan community. How can I, how can I build that? Um, and I do like to tell people, join, Discord servers, or join, like forums online where you can connect with people. Um, and also, from your years of experience, what advice would you have for people who are wanting community, wanting more community direction, wanting to be a part of a community, but maybe there's a fear around that, like, folk magic pagan piece, or they live in a place that is perhaps hostile to this kind of community building?
Well, I'm so lucky because I'm in Minneapolis, which is the best city in the entire universe. Um, and so I just am surrounded by so many lovely human beings. But also, my mother's from a small town in western Minnesota where it's 800 people. And so I also have the experience of being a small town kid. Um, and just watching my family members who are uh, who need more than what the town and the community can give them,
Hmm.
struggle with that. And oftentimes it leads to isolation and sometimes like drug use. And I mean, it's hard. Um, so my advice for everyone, whether they're rural, whether they are in some lovely cities that have fabulous pagan communities, whether they be the pagan leaders of those communities, is that community is hard, and we have got to um, learn to be more like a church where
Mm.
everybody just deals with each other. We just deal with each other. We don't have to be best friends. We don't have to like each other, but we all have a common goal, which is if you are heathen, that there's that common goal, or if you are pagan in Minneapolis, you just want to make sure that May Day happens, whatever that common goal is, right? Um, we have these common goals, and we show up and support one another. And so show up. Show up to your Discord, show up to your conference, show up to the festival, show up to someone's little small town one person stav sessions. Show up, just show up and show up for one another and support each other. Like I said, you don't have to and not everybody got to be best friends. We don't have to be siblings. We don't have to be a kindred, right? To show up
Yeah.
for one another. I have plenty of nieces and nephews out here who are you know, out here trying to do big things with their lives and big things with community. We have a young man here in Minneapolis who's trying to host the All thing. How sweet is that? How sweet is that? You know, we should all just show up. We should all show up and show out,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
To support this young man. So like, I think that um, you have to be willing to and tell me, I'm the queen of this. Step outside of your comfort zone as a mixed race Black woman in a heathen adjacent pagan community, living in small town Minnesota. Like there are very few places where I'm comfortable.
Right.
And if I were to say I'm only going to be comfortable, then I just be in my house on my block, and half the time that ain't even gonna help, right? So like show up, be willing to be uncomfortable, be willing to make connections, and no matter how weird you think you are, start a conversation with somebody. We all think we're so
Yeah.
weird.
Listen, yeah, some of the like weirdest people that I know just look so normal on the
I
outside.
know.
You just gotta talk to them.
And weird is usually so fun, right?
Oh my
Work
God,
the
so much
weird
more fun.
out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Something that I do think is interesting, and I think this has to do with, um, I think honestly, a lot of this has to do with social media and like glamorization of being a professional working witch, or,
Yeah.
people who can look like a professional working witch just because they've got an aesthetic, and they're really good at photography.
Say that.
Yeah. I think that there are a lot of people who feel like that like their spiritual path, they're like, well, I'm pagan, but everybody that I know is like trying to be a leader of a community, um, or, a boss or whatever, a working witch. And I actually think we just need more community members,
Right.
just more people who are willing to show up and support one another. And that in itself is also a kind of leadership, right? Like contributing to the mutual aid drives. Do it like you've been doing. Oh my gosh, you've done a lot of food justice work in the Twin Cities area, like sometimes just within your community, sometimes um, volunteering with an organization as well. And, cooking a meal to contribute to a community gathering is also good. Like, you don't have
Right.
to worry about being the leader. You can just be a community member. And we're strong for just having community members.
Absolutely. So one of the I, one of the ways I see myself as a village builder, and so um, you'll hear me tell people, oh, you can call me Auntie Donyelle, or you can call me Auntie Donyelle, you can call me Sister Donyelle, call me Sister Donyelle, because I came from church people, and I came from Black church people, and we create familial kinds of relationships. Now, I'm not, you can call me Auntie Danielle. You ain't coming over for Christmas dinner, right? Like it don't mean that, you're invited to my son's graduation. Might mean that, but but what it means is I'm here for you in that way. I'm here to support you. I'm going to show up at the thing that if I can. I'm a busy lady, but I'm going to show up for you. You can call me if you're sick and your mom can't help you. You call me. I'll bring you some food, right? Um, and so when I say that we have to be more like church, I know that is like really triggering for some people, especially us, who are trying to kind of decolonize ourselves. But like the church stole the village from us. It
Mm.
stole the roles. And we have to reclaim that. We have to reclaim elderhood. We have to reclaim being a niece or a nephew or a nibbling in the community and having groups of people that we can call on, that we can knock on their door when we need a sofa to sleep on or someone to advise us on how to pop popcorn so it doesn't burn, right? Or how to make a good broom to keep us safe. Or like, I think that the the building of the village is essential. It's essential to when we want to break away from from, how do I say this? Building the church is how we break away from the church. Reclaiming the village is how we decolonize ourselves from the way that Christianity has taken our roles away from us, taken our capacity to pay shield, right? Um, and so I think that saying that you are my community sibling, I think speaks more to the kind of relationship. To say like, oh yeah, we know each other is one thing. Right? I know that person, but to be like, that's my community sibling. I know if I'm really needing something that person has, if if it's they're a baker, it's a piece of bread. If they're a know-it-all, it's some information, whatever.
I'm
That's
officially timing in for know-it-all duty. And if I don't know it, I love
oh,
researching.
thank God, because I don't know nothing. You are on my speed dial.
Perfect. So I was going to save this question for the end of the interview, but I think now is a better time to kind of talk about it. And that is that heathenry and many pagan traditions are very predominantly white in a lot of ways. And I also know that a lot of people want to be as welcoming as possible to people of color, but just because you're trying to be welcoming doesn't mean that you're necessarily creating a community in which people of color feel safe or in which they're able to thrive. So I guess as someone who walks through and goes through so many different roles, and so many different communities too, what would you recommend to people who are trying to build community?
Yeah, how do we create safe and welcoming spaces for people of color,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly it.
hmm So, first of all, um, create welcoming spaces.
Mm,
I
mm-hmm.
mean, so as you probably know, I get asked this question like almost in every community that I'm a part of. How do we make that isn't Black community? How do we make a welcoming space? How do we welcome people and how do we have people feel safe? So first of all, I don't think there are safe spaces. I don't think any space is safe. I don't think
Mm,
safe exists. I think there's always some level of danger. That's why I'm saying, you know, take the risk to step out and show up because it is a risk because it's not safe, right? And especially, um, when I was like, where I'm interested in connecting with um, heathen community, I was terrified, Joe. Like I was
mm.
terrified. I was like, I'm gonna go in this space. All these white ladies gonna be like, who the hell does she think she is? I know there's probably gonna be somebody with a swastika tattooed on their arm. Like I had
Oof,
all of
yeah.
these like preconceived notions about what it was gonna be like. And I showed up and it was a bunch of middle-aged and older, like a good range of white ladies. And they were like knitting and weaving and just sipping glasses of wine and tea, and somebody was playing with some herbs and somebody had some sticks, and I was like, oh, wait a second, this is a lot different than I thought it was going to be. Because it was there was stuff going on in the kind of larger pagan community that where a lot of people's behavior was being exposed, and a lot of different groups were being tied to some, neo-Nazi, so I was nervous, right? And also, like I said, my mom came from a town of 800 people. I understand racialized violence. I've experienced it, and that shit is scary. Um, so I came in and folks just treated me like I was really normal, like they treated me like they would treat everybody else. And they were treating everybody else warmly and with a welcoming spirit, right?
Yeah.
People were looking each other in the eye and greeting each other and smiling, and there was warmth. People were happy to see one another. People were happy to be in space. People were happy to welcome people. So when I hear how do we make space welcoming for people of color, um, first of all, just try being welcoming, because I can't tell you how many spaces I have walked in, especially pagan spaces, where like people don't want to look you in the eye, which is understandable because I know that can be, some neurospicy stuff, but like won't look you in the face when they talking to you. They won't talk to you. They'll turn their head, look you up and down like, what are you? You're not wearing the right color witch's hat. And oh my gosh, like whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so like that's not going to be welcoming to people of color because they ain't welcoming to no damn body. You know what I mean?
That's such a good
So
point.
first of
Yeah.
all, try being nice. Number one. Number two, don't run up on me like I'm a prized piece of cookie because I'm a person of color in white space. Like, tone that shit down. Like,
Hmm.
that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, be be smiling and warm the way you are to everybody. I hope to be as well.
Right.
I don't want to be um, singled out, right? So I think that it really is, in really basic. Treat folks well, right? And if you're unsure about something, read a book. Ask a
Hmm.
friend who might know. If you're like, hey, yo, there's a BIPOC person who's been showing up to one of my meetings, and I want to offer him this African piece of da 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 that somebody, oh gosh, constant that kind of stuff,
Oh,
constant.
I believe it. I believe it.
Um,
But I just like, I internally had that reaction of like, ooh.
oh, child, I have internally have that reaction too. Um, like, take a step back. Ask yourself if you would give it to somebody else. Ask a friend if you have any friends who are of color. Like, what do you think of this? Like, ask yourself why you want to give it to them. You don't know that they are love a Congo mask. You don't know their ancestors are from the like. Whatever urge you have, use that urge to uh, look at yourself and ask yourself why you have that urge. Why do you want to give that thing to that person?
Mm,
Because you want them to like you. You want them to think you're a good one, that you're a safe, fun white person, that you see them for their Africanness. Like, what is it? And then you can say, why do I want them to think that I see them in that way? Why do I want them to look at me in this way? Use it as your own self reflection. Oftentimes I say, be like Frigg, be quiet. Just be
mm-hmm.
quiet and be
Yeah.
loving and warm.
Yeah. I think that that's also, so before you create a welcoming community, I mean, well, you can start a community with welcoming in your heart and in your guidance, but also you can't create a welcoming community without creating a community too. You can't
It's
just
true.
sit at home reading your books and say, wow, I wonder why I don't have any Black heathen friends. Um,
Exactly.
like you have to actually talk to people. You have to actually make spaces for people. And if you just want to be pagan and solitary, that is completely okay. I don't want to say that you like, if you're
Mhm.
very introverted and you just, don't necessarily crave that community, then that's okay. But like, if you want to create these welcoming spaces, you have to create the spaces to begin with.
Yes, you gotta take the risk.
Mm-hmm.
Take the
Yeah.
risk.
Um, so One of the things that I was really excited to talk to you about is your course on ancestor work as spiritual liberation. Um, it looks like it's really good. I think how many rounds have you run of it so far?
Um, we are on we're on the second cohort. The first cohort, we've done 2 levels, and we've kind of graduated to just being a practice circle.
Oh,
And they're
cool.
like, yeah, so now we are practicing, and um it's an opportunity. We've invited some other teachers that teach skills that are supportive of the work that we're doing. So we just had Laura Tempest come in and do a sigil 101 class with the group, and of course, she's so fabulous. So they just
I love
really
her
loved
so
it.
much.
I know. She just had everybody cracking up. She's so funny too. They were
She
like, she's
really is.
nothing like what we expected. I was like, I know. She's a, she's just one of the home girls. So, and that's a really cool cohort. The first cohort is almost all BIPOC. We have one white-bodied person in there, and we all are just getting along so fabulous. The second cohort um, has just started. I think we're on our third, third class. That's a really good group. And then we were going to start the third cohort, and that was it. Oh, here we go. So that cohort was an online cohort that one of my students was going to help to co-teach. That's taken a bunch of my different courses. And it was only white body folks who were signing up. So we were like, we can't have like you know, 10 white body people and then like one person of color, like like that might be, because we're dealing with ancestry, right? It isn't just like, oh, let me talk to girl. I'm like, we're dealing with every class is crying. Every
Mm.
class is crying.
Yeah, it's
Sometimes,
personal.
yes, it goes deep as, AF. And so we were like, we can't. So I was like, we're going to make this into a white body class. So I was like, listen, we're restructuring this, so that it will be a safe space so that folks can really speak to what's going on in their hearts and not feel like they're burdening people of color with this. And for people of color, not to have to hold these really unique and oftentimes really activating um, situations. And don't most people dropped out. They were like, we don't want to come because it's white for white bodies. We
Oh no,
wanted to hang out with the brown folk. I don't know. I don't know what it was. But so
that is so
we're
interesting.
postponing it. I thought it was going to be, I mean, if you want to talk about your colonizing ancestor, like I personally would like to do that in space where I'm not making the colonized person, you know, experience my emotional reality around that. Or if like somebody did something like was a colonizer, but they also were really a kind father. Like that kind of complexity needs a really certain kind of container to hold.
Hmm.
I just think that I just thought it sounded fabulous. So we have right now just have the 2 cohorts, but the third I'm gonna do it. Um, I'm gonna do it. And I know that there are just the right people out here who will appreciate that space.
I
Um,
actually, when you announced that you were going to have it as a white-bodied space, I was like, oh, that would be so perfect for, a lot of the stuff that I'm dealing with my ancestors, like especially
mhm.
on um, like the French Canadian side. I have family here in North America dating back to 1604.
Mm,
So
mm.
so it goes deep, right?
Hmm.
And I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so perfect. And then I was like, I cannot make that time or all those dates. And this is the kind of thing I want to be present for, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, because we start the whole entire 8 weeks is in ceremony. So we
Yeah.
call in the directions and the ancestors on the first day, and then we close on the last day. So you are in ceremony, in process, deep process, for 8 weeks,
Yeah.
right? So like you don't really want to miss. And people have experiences, like people have profound experiences, within their families. Um, what seems to happen is that people experience big changes while they're in the groups,
Hmm.
and I hear this, boy, it's so great that this is going on right now, that this is what is happening, so that I have support to support me through this process, right?
Hmm.
So it's you want to be there for as many of the classes as you can when you're in this course. I'm telling you, Siri, it's just been so beautiful to watch people to like reconnecting. We have we've had two people who've gone to their homelands,
Cool.
yeah, and like reconnected. One of my students uh went back home after being a refugee, and first time in decades, and went back to the place where their umbilical cord was buried. Yeah.
Chills. Oh my God,
Right?
that's amazing. Holy
Just
wow.
incredible. It's my it's my life's work, right? I
Hmm.
mean, it really is, it has, my doll work, my spirit work, the ancestor work, the cultural component, building community, somatic grief support, like all of the things that I do are wrapped up in these courses. And so it is just so rewarding to witness these folks um, on this journey. So I love it so much. I'm so grateful.
I hope to take it. I hope to join you for a cohort soon. I just need
I
to
would
make sure. I need to make sure that I can do all the days.
or don't miss too many, because another thing that we've done that the first cohort has figured out. They're all geniuses. It's hard leading a group of geniuses. Um, but they were like, you know what we're gonna do is when we're gonna ritualize that whenever somebody misses, then one of us picks the time to sit with them and walk through the whole session that they've missed.
Wow.
And that will in turn build relationships and connections,
Ugh,
but then also deepen our understanding of the subject. Right? They figured that out. I didn't do that.
that is so generous too. I mean, that's so generous.
I know. Lovelies. They're
Yeah.
just a bunch of lovelies.
Ugh, amazing. I know that ancestor work is so like specific and so deeply personal for a lot of people. So I wasn't even sure how to like break my thoughts about, ancestor work as spiritual liberation into multiple questions, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but what can you kind of say for people who are, maybe dipping their toe into ancestor work, or curious about it? I know a lot of people who, especially queer folks, who are looking at ancestor work and going, well, my ancestors hate me. What do I do
Mm.
with that? How do I handle, sitting with these ancestors that have a lot of ancestors who might despise me or revile me,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
of who I am as a person. I know that that stops a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
um, from even entering in.
Mm-hmm. Well, so this is what I'm going to start with. First of all, I am mixed race Black person, and I come from some pretty racist folks. And so that experience of, and I'm super pro, I'm bliggity Black. Like I'm not, I'm blackety blackety Black.
Yeah.
And really radical about it in my feelings and thoughts and opinions um and so my there are a lot of parts of myself that I have been afraid that my ancestors might not know what to do with. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to say. I do ancestor work individually with people or do readings, right? And I do work with a lot of queer trans folk, a lot of youth, young people who are my little nibblings. I love them so. And I will tell you that, do the ancestor misgender? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do they say, this is my little baby girl when they're talking about somebody? Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. And have I ever come across an ancestor who hated their trans or non-binary or queer child, grandchild, great niece, great nephew, like great nibbling, um, because of that? Never. Not once. Not
Oh,
once have I
wow.
come across that. No, no. I've come across misgendering, right? I had one client who was going to do top surgery, and there was like there was an ancestor who came in and was like, just wait, don't jump into this so quickly. And I tell folks, I'm like, listen, I'm going to tell you what they say, and if it's too much, if we need to stop, then we can stop. But if they say something, I have to say it because that is my job. And then we can process it together afterwards and be like, we're going to keep this, we're going to throw this out. What are we going to do with it? But I just tell them. And so that was really that one was a hard one, right? To be like, this ancestor is like, wait to do the top surgery. Just wait. Give yourself some time. Work with your body for a while before you make this very important and serious choice, right? And they took the advice and they waited. They haven't gotten it done, yet. It's been a couple of years, and they were also experiencing some financial difficulties, and there were other things going on, and so that could have been why the ancestor was like, you need to wait, like this is not the time. But I haven't had uh, anybody. I have not had anybody be hated by their ancestors. I have had one ancestor come through for somebody who was like a monster,
Mm.
right? They were cis white person, and their ancestor came through like a almost like a poltergeist. I was like, Lord have mercy, we gonna shut this down right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that one was really, I was like, God, I was sick for a couple days after that one too. I was like, we can't
Oof.
work with your ancestors. Sorry, I can't help you.
Oh no.
But yeah, so I want to say so that's, I talk a lot as you are learning. Um, so I haven't had an experience where somebody has been hated or rejected by their ancestor. Um, I they are sometimes it takes a long time for them to kind of maybe not a long time, it takes a while for them to catch up and catch in. You have to invite them to be a part of your life so that they understand and see what your life is, right? If they experienced you as a little girl, and you're no longer a little girl, you're a grown man, right? You've got to give them chance to catch up with that and
Mm-hmm.
explain to them, hey, this is what was happening inside of my body, inside of my heart and my mind. And you remember that time when, like, remember how I always loved to do this and do that and do this, or I was always really embarrassed to do this and do that? That's because of this, this, and this. And this is the decision I've made that will make me happy. And it might take a while for you to figure that out, just like you would in life if you have that kind of relationship with your, with your people. Um, you gotta, uh, if you want to have a relationship with folks who might not understand you, it's a really great thing to talk to them and be like, hey, here's a little cookie on the ancestor altar. Great great grandpa, let me tell you how I decided to get top surgery. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So I think that ancestor work is like being with your family. You set up a good altar, you keep it clean, you hang out with them, you eat meals with them, and you tell them what TF is going on in your life, in your heart, in your spirit, in your community, in the family. Uncle so and so, he still ain't figured it out. Let them
Yeah.
know. Let them know,
Yeah.
because we have this idea that they just are out there and, um, first of all, paying attention. They're not necessarily. You ain't that cool. You know, there's a lot of other things to be done.
Right.
We also have this idea that they're like die and then all of a sudden they're elevated, or that they die and they're stuck. Who knows? Depending on how they were in life, is how they were in death, right? I would like to hope that as when I die, I will continue to grow because that's been my focus in life. Anyway, so there's that. Sorry.
No, no, please don't apologize. I think that that was really rich and also very, hopefully reassuring for a lot of my, listeners who maybe are like, ooh, people talk about this, but I'm really afraid, or, I have a lot of reservations. So hopefully that's really reassuring. To the misgendering part of it, I remember when I had you do an ancestor reading for me once, and they came
I
through.
did?
You did, yeah. It was
Oh
years
my
ago.
gosh. I hope it was good.
It was definitely good. It was really funny because so longtime listeners of the podcast know that I started this podcast with a different name. And they insisted on calling me Little, like, other
Blank.
first name.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's kind of funny. I'm non-binary, but I changed my name from a fem name to another fem name. um, I just decided to make things really hard for people and understanding it. And then there's the whole iPhone thing. I really brought a lot upon myself with that one. But yeah, they called me that, and in the moment, like the way that you approached it was so I could tell when you were apologizing as you were like, I'm sorry, but this is what they're calling you. I was like, no, that's okay, keep going. And it was just really reassuring. And then but it was also like, well, they are my people, like that's probably how they were introduced to me, you know that makes sense that they would want to call me my old name, right? And it didn't feel purposeful, it didn't feel malicious, as it may with, my living relatives don't purposefully misgender or misname me. Thankfully, that's not my lived experience, but I know plenty of people who do have that experience, and it is done maliciously.
Yeah, yeah,
But with these
yeah.
folks, it was
I
just clear, like, oh, we know you as this name, you know?
Yes, and I think that how they, the, that spirit realm is just really, I mean, it's just really interesting. But so my experience is they see you as the oftentimes as a certain point in your life, and so it doesn't matter. And having a child, it really makes sense to me. So I always look at my child as about, I don't know, 5, 4, 5. They're 17, right? And
Right.
they're, he is, you know, growing into being a young man and really, doing such a good job with it. He's just such a gentle, wonderful human. But whenever I look at him, I'm like, that's my baby. That's my baby. And I call him my baby, and he still calls me mama. And, like we have this, like, and I know that when I die and I am interacting with him, I'm probably going to be still interacting with him as if he was just a little baby. And so he might change his name to Scott, his middle name, with a SCHADT, right? Because I'm cool like that.
Hell yeah.
And he might change his name from what I named him to that. And I think that probably it will be really hard for me in that next, for me to be like, this is not my 5-year-old Kofi, my little boy, right? I see him that way. That is how my heart reaches out to him. That is that heart, the heart connection, which is a lot of the times how we communicate with the ancestors is through that heart space. And so when my advice to folks is just try to kind of frame it in this is where they experience their most tender love for you, this part version of yourself, right? And that is the kind of red sacred thread that they are communicating through. And so misgendering is hard. I understand. I can understand how hard that is. And also there is this whole other piece of uh, the way that spirit works, the way that our ancestors see us. That is uh, that oftentimes is really like almost fragmented, and we get the opportunity to allow them to catch up to us, right?
I
You
love
know,
that. Yeah. And that is also helps, me at least have a little bit more patience or
because you want to be like, shit, that's not who I am.
right? Or, like one of the things that I also think about all the time, and I don't think I'll ever have an answer for this question, but something I think about all the time is how spirit time works differently than our time. And so I never know, are you going to, for them, like it might still be that I'm 5, you know,
Yeah.
like literally, like not just in terms of that beautiful, like the red thread connecting them to, when they met me and they, think of me and they love me and they think of me at that age. It might also just literally feel like it is still that time. And so I think there's like, you have to kind of like, there's the catching up, in a relational way, like a getting to know you way, like catch up to where my life is now, but also literally it's not 1995 anymore. Like,
I know, me too. And you know what? Sometimes I see like there's certain spirits that move so like when I see them, they move so fast. Like,
right.
and then I'm like, how can you be stuck? How can time work that visually you are moving so fast that it's kind of spooky, right? But like also you're stuck in, 1973 or 1845. Like, how does that work? Anyway, I'm sure
Yeah,
somebody, one of our people that we know has answers to that.
I'm sure we have a good network of people who are very wise.
We know some
Um,
super cool broads.
yeah, pretty cool people. Um, yeah, I have one ancestor, so this is probably one of my most, oh wow, that was very Minnesotan. Most. Um,
Do it, friend.
just like going for it. Um, yeah, so this is probably one of my most supportive ancestors, surprisingly. And she is the first woman, the first pluff on Canadian soil.
Mm.
Um, she got a 1600s divorce, left her husband in
Ooh,
Paris. Um, and she just is so intensely supportive and so like curious about my queer lifestyle and like interested and like
yeah.
down to be like a support in that way. And so you would be so surprised too. You can't assume that your ancestors will have the same kind of um, mindset that maybe your currently living relatives that you struggle with have.
Absolutely.
I also think
Absolutely.
sometimes if the ancestors don't want to hang out with you, they just won't answer. Like if it's an ancestor that really truly is like, wow, I do not want to support that person at all. I don't know what that person is all about. Like I feel like they're just not going to answer when I give them something at the altar, you know?
Exactly. You make the phone call, they're not going to pick it up.
Right.
Hmm. Just
Yeah.
like we do. Yeah,
They're screening my calls from the other side.
yeah. Ah, Sarah again. Wonder what
Dang.
they gonna ask me for.
Pass them off to, Joseph or something. Um,
Oh,
oh my gosh, thank you so much. I feel like we could have a whole other podcast episode essentially um, about ideas of shelves specifically. Because I'm
I
looking
know.
at the questions that I sent you, and I'm like, oh man, we're like, you know, almost an hour in. Um, and that is a whole hour-long conversation in and of itself. Um,
I think so.
so instead of going into that now, how do we want to, what do you want to impart to listeners? What is some of the most important stuff that's coming up for you right now?
Well, first of all, you know, when I said, I don't necessarily kind of consider myself a heathen, but I also don't not consider myself, right? Um, I have been so grateful for the kindness and um, the welcoming energy that I've received from so many of my heathen relatives, my community um, folk, um, and not just to me, but to my super, interesting family, my blood family that I bring to these to things. And so I feel like it's important to acknowledge um, that we have, in Minneapolis, there is a diverse group of heathens here, and that so many of them are quite lovely and welcoming, and my gratitude for that, and my gratitude that I am still welcome into spaces even though I don't adhere to the title of heathen. Um, you know, I would be so honored if I could, right? Like I would be honored for that. Um, but because of my work, it doesn't always fit. So I want to say that first, my gratitude to the healing community for allowing me to just kind of dance around and be present and, love on them and accept their love. I just, I'm grateful for that. I think the other thing I just want to encourage that level of community. And do I think partially it's because I am a Black woman in heathen spaces? I surely do. I surely think that people are extra gentle with me and extra welcoming um that once again is a double-edged sword, right? It's wonderful and it's also like kind of, you know. But I just want to encourage our local community and the rest of the community, nationally and internationally, to continue the goodwill and the good work to decolonize ourselves, to move away from white supremacy, to move away from the patriarchy. I am so grateful that that work is being done and that we are learning how to educate our community around what is white supremacy and communities that we have to stay aware of and uh, and protect our vulnerable around. Continue that really good work. Continue to queer the runes, right? Like, continue this fabulous work that we're doing as a community to make these practices for all of us. I'm really grateful to be allowed to be a part of this. So I think that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much. And, I'm so grateful for your presence in community as well. And just, I I think that what we have in Minnesota is honestly very rare. Um,
Yeah.
and I wish it wasn't so rare because it's beautiful. And I want other places to have that beauty. Um, but people are like, it just feels like a different breed here sometimes.
It does. I went out east and I went to Sacred Space Between the Worlds conference, and their heathen community out there is really lovely too. There's some really lovely folks. I was like, and lovely and kind, and and everybody intermingled, kind of the way that we do, right? All of the pagans and the heathens, everybody was intermingled and had relationships, and I was like, oh, this feels like home to me. This part of this community feels like home. And I just have to plug that the Völva Stav Guild is, you
Oh,
know, that's my home space, and that's the guild, the heathen adjacent group that nurtures me and supports me in doing this work as I'm holding, carrying the staff for a community as a Black woman is a lot
yeah.
of responsibility, and I just am really grateful to the guild for their support on
Hmm.
my work. So
Yeah. I'm very grateful that we share a mentor in Kari. Um, and that community is so amazing. As you were talking about, creating welcoming spaces and your first time coming to a heathen, you know, group and seeing everybody knitting or, weaving, somebody was making tea with herbs, like all of that stuff. I just saw the Nordic women's retreat.
yeah,
Like that's just what I saw. I saw all of those people, in a circle, and I was like, "Yep, that is what it feels like, right? It's quiet, but it's really powerful." Um, yeah. All right.
yeah.
Well, thank
Kari
you.
Turing, she deserves all the flowers, all the flowers. What a hidden
Indeed.
gem in this community. I mean, not too hidden, but like just a bright diamond, a pearl, if you will.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Hmm.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show. If people wanted to follow along with your work, where can they do that? You know, if people are listening and they're like, oh, I would actually really love to, take a future cohort of the Ancestor Work as Spiritual Liberation class, where would they find you?
They can find me on folkwayllc.com. FOLKWAYLLC.com.
Perfect. And I will, of course, link that in the show notes.
Thank you. I'm just being silly, but yes.
No, you had a good radio cadence there.
Thanks, I'm practicing.
Wonderful. Well, it was a delight as always to talk to you, Donyelle, and I hope that you have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you, friend.
Mwah.
Mwah.
Thank you for listening to the Heathen's Journey podcast. I'm so glad that you could be here. If you are interested in supporting the podcast financially, I would recommend checking out my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Siri Vincent Pluff. And of course, that is linked in the show notes. Until next time, stay weird.